you think you know Japan, the temples, the samurai, the mythology. You've seen the surface, and the surface is extraordinary. But underneath it, there is another Japan. Older, stranger, darker. A Japan that was deliberately erased from the official record. Buried, hidden. This channel goes there. One Piece is a story about a pirate who wants to find a treasure. That is the surface. Underneath it, there is something else. A blank century of erased history. A ruling class that enslaved entire peoples and marked them. Ancient stones with writing that no one alive can read. These are also features of real Japanese history. Today, we are going to look at the parallels, and we are going to let you decide what they mean. In the 3rd century AD, China sent envoys to Japan. Those envoys wrote detailed reports about what they found. The country was called Wa. It was ruled by a shamaness queen named Himiko, and their records describe in specific detail what the people of Japan looked like, how they dressed, how they lived, and what marked their bodies. Those records are called the Gishi Wajinden. They are among the most reliable primary sources we have for ancient Japan. Then, roughly from the late 3rd century to the early 5th century, a period of about 150 years, the written record from outside Japan goes almost silent. Chinese diplomatic contact largely ceases. The next clear picture we get in the 5th century shows a Japan that is fundamentally different from the one the Chinese envoys described. Not slightly different, completely different. A different dominant culture, a different ruling class, different technology, different customs. The question historians still argue about is, what happened in those 150 years? The Gishi Wajinden states this directly, and I'm going to read from the primary source now. Men, young and old, all tattoo their faces and decorate their bodies with designs. This is not a fringe claim. It is written in one of China's official dynastic histories compiled in the 3rd century by a court historian named Chen Shu. The tattooing of the entire male population was normal. It was so universal that it apparently surprised the Chinese observers enough to document it specifically. The records also indicate that the placement and style of tattooing varied by social rank and by region. In other words, tattoos function something like identification, marking who you were, where you came from, what group you belong to. Now, fast forward to the 5th century. The Nihon Shoki, Japan's second oldest official history, compiled in 720 AD, contains a passage from what is dated to the reign of Emperor Rishu in the early 5th century. In it, those who participated in a rebellion are punished by having tattoos immediately applied to their faces. Think about that for a moment. In the 3rd century, every man in Japan has tattoos. They are normal. They are identity. In the 5th century, tattoos are a punishment, a mark of shame, something done to criminals and rebels. The same thing, a practice that was universal and culturally central, had been completely inverted in meaning. Within a period of roughly 150 years, there is no gradual shift documented, no cultural debate, no record of why this happened. It simply changed. Historians have proposed various explanations. The spread of continental culture from Korea and China, which viewed tattooing as barbaric. The rise of textile culture, which made body decoration less necessary as a social marker. The consolidation of the Yamato state, which suppressed regional identities. These explanations may all be partly true, but none of them fully explain the speed of the transformation or the completeness of it. One archaeologist put it this way, and I won't quote exactly, but the meaning is this. Looking at the contrast between the tattooed people of the Yayoi period and the non-tattooed people of the Kofun period, one might suspect that the people themselves had been entirely replaced. Tattoos are not the only thing that changed during those 150 years. The Gishi Wajinden explicitly states, there are no cattle or horses in where. This was the 3rd century. No horses in Japan. Then, in the late 4th to early 5th century, precisely during the blank period, archaeological evidence shows that horses arrived in Japan. Not just arrived, spread across the entire archipelago with remarkable speed. Horse gear, saddles, stirrups, bridle appears suddenly in burial mounds. Horses themselves appear in the clay figurines called Haniwa. Within a century, horse culture had become central to the military and political identity of the ruling class. This is not gradual adoption. This is introduction by people who already knew horses intimately. People for whom horses were not a novelty, but a way of life. So we have 2 major cultural markers, tattoos and horses, that completely reverse or appear from nothing during the same 150-year window. And we have no written Japanese records from that period to explain it, because Japan had no writing system yet. The blank is not just political, the blank is total. Now let's turn to One Piece, and I want to be precise about what I'm saying here. I am not claiming that Eiichiro Oda intended any of this. I have no way of knowing what was in his mind. What I'm saying is there are structural parallels between the history he invented for his fictional world and the history that actually happened in Japan. And those parallels are interesting enough to examine. In One Piece, there is a blank century, 100 years of history, that someone powerful deliberately erased. Before that blank century, certain things were true about the world. After it, those things were gone. The people who survived carry the memory of the old world in stone. In real Japanese history, there is a blank of 150 years. Before it, tattooed, horse-free people. After it, a non-tattooed, horse-riding ruling class. The people who survived carry nothing, because the writing hadn't been invented yet. There is also the matter of the celestial dragons. In One Piece, the celestial dragons, the Tenryou Bito, are a ruling class descended from the founders of the world government. They keep slaves, and those slaves are marked, branded, with a symbol that identifies them as property, as someone who does not have freedom. In real history, the new ruling class of 5th century Japan used tattoos as punishment, as a mark that identified someone as a criminal, a rebel, someone who had been brought to heel. The tattoo that was once identity, a mark of belonging to your people, your clan, your land, had become a mark of conquest, of defeat. Now let's talk about stone. In One Piece, the poneglyphs are ancient stones, massive, indestructible, inscribed with writing in a language that has been deliberately suppressed. Almost no one alive can read them. The people who could read them were eliminated. What survives is the stone itself. Japan has ancient stone monuments too, and some of them are older than Stonehenge. The Oyu stone circles in Akita Prefecture are among the most remarkable. They were built during the Jomon period, Japan's prehistoric era, roughly 4,000 years ago. They are precisely oriented to astronomical events, the summer solstice sunset, visible from specific alignment points within the stones. These sites are not small curiosities. They are now UNESCO World Heritage Sites, recognized alongside the prehistoric monuments of Britain and Ireland as evidence of a sophisticated, organized culture with a deep understanding of astronomy and time. The Jomon people who built them left no written language. What they left is stone. Here is where the connection becomes most interesting, and also most contested. In One Piece, the poneglyphs are written in a script that the world government attempted to erase. The only people who can read it come from a specific lineage, the scholars of Ohara, the clan of Dei. People who kept the knowledge alive secretly across generations. Japan has its own tradition of documents that claim to predate the official historical record. Some researchers call them the Koshikoden, the para-histories. The most significant include the Hotsuma Tutaye, the Takenouchi documents, and the Katakamuna documents. These texts are written in scripts that differ from the Chinese characters Japan officially adopted in the 5th and 6th centuries. Scripts that their proponents claim are native to Japan, older than the official record acknowledges. The Hotsuma Tutaye, for example, is written in a script called Woshite. It describes events from Japan's mythological age, but in ways that differ significantly from the official account in the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki. In the Hotsuma version, Amaterasu, Japan's sun goddess, is described as male. The same figure, a completely different gender. The mainstream academic view is that these documents are forgeries or later compositions, but the people who study them argue that the linguistic evidence is more complex than that some of the vocabulary is genuinely archaic, that the forgery hypothesis doesn't fully account for what's there. I'm not telling you what to believe. I am telling you the question exists. Let's take stock of what we've looked at today. 3rd century Japan, universal tattoo culture, no horses, documented by Chinese observers. 5th century Japan, tattoos are criminal punishment, horses are everywhere, a new centralized state has emerged. The period in between, approximately 150 years of near total silence. One Piece, a blank century of erased history. A ruling class that marks slaves. Ancient stones with suppressed writing. Whether Oda drew on any of this consciously or not, the structural resonance is there. This channel exists to explore exactly this kind of history. The layers that don't make it into textbooks, the questions that don't have clean answers, the evidence that demands we keep looking. If that's the kind of history you want to explore, subscribe. New episodes every Thursday, and leave a comment. What do you think happened during those 150 years? Next time, the blank period ends, a new ruling class has consolidated power, and in the year 712 AD, for the first time in Japanese history, someone writes it all down. The Kojiki, Japan's oldest official history. But who wrote it? Who ordered it written? And what did they choose to leave out? Because the people who write history decide what history is. Thursday,